Hi, my name is Alyssa Thompson and I will be doing my presentation on the story of the FAA. So first we're going to start off, I did my presentation on Prezi and I'm sorry for the low quality camera. So first we're starting off in the year 1926. The aviation leaders feared the worst during this time. They felt the aviation industry needed rules and safety standards. This is why in 1926, an important year for the Air Commerce Act was passed. This landmark legislation charged the Secretary of Commerce with fostering air commerce, issuing and enforcing traffic rules, licensing pilots, certifying aircraft, establishing airways, and operating and maintaining aids, air navigation, a new aeronautics branch in the Department of Commerce, primarily responsibility for the aviation oversight, and William P. McCracken Jr. became its first dictator. Overall, this is when the idea of the FAA started. It was not FAA yet. Sorry, my words are getting confused. I have to do FFA, so I'm getting them mixed up. I apologize. But it did not come into this at first. It was actually just this idea that they had because they knew they had to keep the people safe, but they just couldn't figure out how. That is why in 1926, the Commerce Act was performed. Next, we go into detail on the Department of Commerce. This reflects the growing importance of the aviation to the nation. In one of its first acts, the Bureau encouraged a group of airlines to establish the first air traffic control centers, Newark, New York, Jersey, Cleveland, Ohio, and Chicago and Illinois, to provide en route air traffic control in 1936. The Bureau took over these centers early en route. Controllers tracked the position of the planes using maps and blackboards in little boats, shaped weights that came to be called shrimp boats. They had no direct radio link with the aircraft, but used telephones to stay in touch with the airline dispatchers, airway, radio operators, and air traffic controllers. I included this slide to give more information of the Department of Commerce on what they did. They didn't really have the good technology that we have today with like the radar system and cell phones. They didn't really have that, so they kind of just had to use what they had on hand, and this is how they adapted. So that's just this slide. Now we go back to our main slide, and I did this on Prezi, so it's nice and cute. So in 1958 is the next year that I addressed. It is when Senator A.S. Mike Monroe introduced a bill to create an independent federal aviation agency to provide for the safe and efficient use of national airspace. 2 months later, on August 23, 1958, the President signed the Federal Aviation Act, which transferred the Civil Aeronautics Authority's functions to a new independent federal aviation industry, responsible for the civil aviation safety. Although the Federal Aviation Agency technically came into existence with the passage of the Act, it actually assumed its functions in stages. Under the provisions of the Act, the Federal Aviation Agency would begin operations 60 days after the appointment of the first Federal Aviation Agency Administrator. On November 1st, 1958, retired Air Force General Elwood P. Quesada became the first Federal Aviation Agency Administrator. 60 days later, on December 31st, the FAA agency became operations. So 1958 is when the aviation actually came into play. The FAA actually came into existence. I want to believe President Roosevelt was mainly the one that was in charge of all this. I included this slide because I felt like this is the important time. This is when the FAA came into play, which is what mine is about, my presentation is about, and how it came into play and why it's important now. So next we're going into the World War II. World War II vintage. The Federal Aviation Agency worked to obtain headquarters buildings and consolidate employees in one location, and on November 22nd, 1963, the Federal Aviation Agency's Washington headquarters staff began moving into the newly completed federal office building 10A at 800 Independence Avenue, St. Wall Street. All was peaceful until the assassination of Roosevelt. So Roosevelt was in charge of this. He was assassinated at the end of this era, which left another president in charge, which we will get to in the next slide. Sadly, I could not find it. I found a picture of the Federal Aviation Agency building, but it would not upload in my presentation. But there is a building in Washington, D.C., and there is a building, I want to say in New York, that I found. They are really well structured and stuff, so if you ever get a chance to visit, you should. The next year we visit is 1966. President Johnson took role after President Roosevelt. President Johnson, concerned about the lack of coordinated transportation system, believed a single department was needed to be developed and carry out comprehensive transportation policies and programs across all transportation modes. In 1966, Congress authorized the creation of a cabinet department that would combine major federal transportation responsibilities. This new Department of Transportation, DOT, began full operations on April 1st, 1967. On that day, the Federal Aviation Agency became one of the several model organizations within DOT and received a new name, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. At the same time, CAB's accident investigation function was transferred to the new National Transportation Safety Board. So 1966 is when it changed to the FAA officially. So this is really kind of like where it came to life and where all the authorities come into play, which is why we have the little bubbles. Label organizes in 1963 of January, New York controllers formed an employee organization, the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization, or PATCO. Within 6 months, PATCO had a national membership of over 5,000 controllers to highlight difficult working conditions and growing national airspace system. NAS congestion. In July 1968, the PATCO chairman announced Operations Air Safety, which he described as the campaign to maintain FAA prescribed separation standards between aircrafts in a period of discord between management and PATCO. Culminated in 1970 sick out by 3,000 controllers. Although controllers subsequently gained additional wages and retirement benefits, tension between the union and management did not ease. So we were having trouble with the labor and stuff, like labor management in general, and like the balance between like benefits and wages is what was bothering us at this time. So that's just an important slide because of how the FAA handled it. We really basically all we did was give higher wages to people. We tried to give them benefits, but some people weren't really happy, so it just kind of didn't work out. So we did evolving duties. Almost from its creation, the agency found itself facing with a number of unexpected challenges. In 1961, for example, the first series of aircraft hijacking in the U.S. occurred in August of that year. The federal government began employing armed guards, boarding patrolmen, recruitment from the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service on civil-line plane. In September, President Kennedy signed an amendment to the Federal Aviation Act of 1958, which made it a crime to hijack any aircraft or interfere with an active flight crew or carry a dangerous weapon aboard an air carrier. To help enforce the act, Special Corps of FAA safety inspectors began training for duty aboard airline flights. In March 1962, Attorney General Robert Kennedy swore in FAA's first peace office a special U.S. deputy marshals. These men worked as safety inspectors for the flights. So we enforced these because of first hijacking, which we will end up eventually getting into 9/11. Not in my presentation personally. My computer is very old, so it likes to glitch. I apologize. But this is also referring to 9/11 because of the hijackings. So this is one of the rules that we had enforced by the FAA at the time. 1978, the Airline Deregulation Act was signed. In October of 24th, 1978, it created high competition air industry. We're going to go ahead and go to the labor unrest and the new technologies, and I'm just going to summarize them because I'm running out of time and I do not want to miss the video because there is a lot. So basically, while the video is loading, those past couple of slides were discussing on how crazy the world was at the time and how the FAA handled it with their regulations and rules. This is the video I have imported into the thing, and it just says the future of the FAA and how they plan on bettering everybody, I guess, in general.
The Federal Aviation Administration maintains, operates, and oversees the largest and most complex aviation system in the world, controlling almost half of the world's air traffic with a safety record that is second to none. Looking ahead to the next century of aviation, the FAA is poised to meet the capacity demands of the future by developing new, collaborative strategies and performance targets that will accommodate more traffic, boost on-time performance, and enhance the ability to predict and minimize disruptions to the National Airspace System, or NAS. Collaborative Decision-Making, or CDM, is a joint government-industry initiative aimed at improving air traffic management through increased information exchange.
This part of the video is referring to the new technologies, which I have listed in my presentation, which is on Prezi, if anybody actually wants to read it and be informed. The new technologies actually helped better the communication. As previously stated, we did not have good communications like radar like we do today to help navigate the planes back in the 1950s. So this is what we're referring to then, and that is what I was referring to that past slides. If you'd like to go read that, you should. It's under Alyssa Thompson, and it is the story of the FAA.
Among the various partners in the aviation community. One of the most high-profile and successful activities associated with the CDM community is the National Airspace System Operations Planning Teleconference, which takes place every 2 hours throughout each day. Hosted by the FAA Air Traffic Control System Command Center outside Washington, D.C.
The command center is also listed in previous slides if you would like to go back to reading it. The command center is just where the overall head is. They actually have like smaller branches all around the US, but this is where all the information is stored and where every information and signal is transmitted. The rest of the video is basically discussing the plans for the future of the FAA, and overall the FAA's plans for the future involve just getting a better control over circumstances like hijacking. They want a better safety plans. They're evolving their safety plans daily by daily. No one can predict the future, so the FAA is traveling. As a summary, the FAA is here to protect the people involved in the aviation industry. They work toward keeping them safe and secure at all times. So the FAA came into play in the 1960s, and it is still working to this day, successfully trying to keep everybody as safe as possible. Like I did say previously, we do have hijackings that happen, which is what we're referring to the 9/11 incident and the incident that was listed previously in my slides. The FAA is constantly rearranging rules and allowing for new things to happen in the future. We're referring to, I did make a slide to it, but as we have in the future, you know, there's COVID-19, and the FAA has to make new health code regulations just for us. So overall, the FAA is a very helpful program that we use in America to help better the safety and travels of many of our citizens, and many people traveling internationally. Really, it's just a program, an agency that will help anybody and everybody. Thank you for watching.